Can you imagine me walking around in the streets like this? I can't. Because, look, listen. I spent the better half of my morning doing this insanity. And yeah, I look insane. And I'm pink, and my background is also pink because today we're talking about the loved ones. I forgot to say, welcome to me screaming into the void. As I said before, we're talking about The Loved Ones. It's an Australian indie horror movie that released in 2009 and was directed by none other than Sean Byrne. There I go again with the names. I will be doing a lot of this, a lot of it, because I'm feeling myself. Also, by the way, I dressed up for the occasion.
Wow.
Because the movie is about prom night, an Australian prom night, which is called The Last School Day Dance or something like that. So, what do you think?
Gorgeous.
Right? Back to The Loved Ones. So it's an indie horror film directed by Sean Byrne, who also directed Devil's Candy, which was also a fun movie. And he is already in post-production for Dangerous Animals that is hopefully coming out soon. I am so excited to see it. I have no idea what it is about, but keep an eye out for that one. The Loved Ones, to make it spoiler-free for the ones who will click off after when the spoilers will start, starts with a heartbreak that spirals into pure chaos, okay? You have Brent, who's played by Xavier Samuel. You have Brent, who's... Oh my God, I'm already starting.
So, you have Brent, who's played by Xavier Samuel.
Bruh.
Simple, who is invited for the school dance by Lola. And a simple no of rejection from his side develops into an absolute glitter-drenched, twisted mayhem. Okay? I'm talking DIY prom night. I'm talking creepy dad. We're talking pitch black humor that escalates into a sense of dread, and it's just a wild and brutal ride.
Okay.
Let's get, as I like to say, into the nitty-gritty of it all. Because the movie opens up with Brent, who is driving his dad, and they're both listening to Lonesome Loser, and they're having this beautiful conversation about old school songs, because Brent, you will see later, is a metalhead. And Dad lights a cigarette, which in hindsight is a bit ironic because Brent gives him this look that, cigarettes will kill you. And spoilers, the second that happens, he sees a half-naked guy with a bloody torso on the road, and he needs to swerve and smashes into a tree. And his dad dies. So this is the opening of the movie, and we are fast forward 6 months later, and Brent is in school with his friend who is going to ask the beautiful goth girl Mia out to the school dance, and she says yes, and he's super excited. Brent, on the other hand, is asked by this very shy girl who's already wearing pink, Lola. I tremble. Just saying her name makes me squirm. Who's played by Victoria Thane.
No, she's not. Try again.
So, Lola is played by Robin McLeavy. And Holly is played by Victoria Thane. So he says no. She's disappointed, and she just stands there and just watches him leave. in what you will later realize a very creepy way. Under the instructions of the director, Robin McLeavy prepared for the role of Lola by researching Jeffrey Dahmer and watching Misery, Natural Born Killers, and Quentin Tarantino's works. And you will also see that this movie is heavily influenced by also Carrie and other works. And
one eternity later.
And he took heavy influence from P.T. Anderson, who in his movies always tries to interconnect everything and not leave any plot holes. And I find he did that very well. From now on, we're getting into spoiler territory. And if you don't click off this video because you haven't watched this movie yet, you're just gonna get it. Okay? Because I'm just tired of saying spoilers throughout this video. From now on, if you haven't watched the movie, it's on you, not on me. I warned you before. Wait. I warned you. Welcome to my humble abode. Back to Holly and Brent making out in the car. And Lola staring at them from the window. They do not notice. In the same breath, you also see, and Holly also notices, that Brent etches himself with a razor blade, which he wears around his neck. And I'm guessing that he did that already after the death of his dad to kind of cope with the anxiety and most probably also the guilt, because he was driving the car. When he gets home, his mother is like, listen, take a taxi, don't drive with Holly, because she is scared that he might also get into a car accident, which understandable since her husband, the love of her life, died in the car accident. And Brent retorts to her, you think it's my fault, right? And then he leaves, listening to heavy metal with his dog, and starts climbing a rock wall to a little place where he likes to smoke the stuff and contemplate, I guess, on his life with heavy metal music playing from his iPod, because it was 2008, right? So he sneaks off, and while he is chilling there with his dog, who you will later know is Lola's dad, sneaks up from behind and chloroforms him and kidnaps him and puts him in his car. By the way, on IMDb, as I did the research, the dad, Lola's dad, has been named Daddy. Nothing else. He has no name in this movie. His name is just Daddy. In the meantime, his clueless friend, because it's the night of the dance, his friend who had asked Mia out, who's played by Richard Wilson, is getting the highs before picking up Mia, who seems to be a bit of a tragic character on its own, because you will then later find out that she was one of the boys that was also kidnapped by Lola's dad. You will know later why. So nobody knows that Lola's dad is doing it. Her brother just disappeared, and her dad is a police officer, and they just couldn't find her brother. And I feel like she blames her dad because he's the police and he should be doing his job. Right? Right. Right. So, he's getting the highs before picking up his prom date, Mia. And at the same time, Holly finds the dog that has been hurt and is figuring out that something's not right. Back to Brent. He wakes up in this DIY prom night from hell. They dressed him up By they, I mean Lola's dad and Lola, dressed him up in a tuxedo, tied him to a chair, and when he wakes up, he sees lobotomized, bright eyes mommy of Lola on one side in this shrill blue satin prom dress. You see Lola in the most gaudy pink prom dress that I have ever seen, which was inspired by Carrie's pink prom dress. And Daddy in a not really matching, but trying to match baby pink tie. And this is where the nightmare begins. The first thing they do is they give him a bleach injection. Now, as a bit of a background, this movie is a 2008 Aussie horror movie and is very much a product of its time, because at this time Saw came out, you had Hostel, you had all these very gory movies that exploited this facet, right? Torturing people to the utmost, and in this way giving you the shock factor. Only I like the Loved Ones more than I did the other ones, because here there is a backstory, you feel for Brent, and there is just this tinge, not even tinge, it's a very sick and twisted way that father and daughter have a relationship. I don't know how far the relationship goes. We never see that. It's just with very small, nuanced factors that you realize that Daddy and Princess, as he likes to call her, don't have the healthiest father-daughter relationship ever. I'll leave it at that. And this movie, as I said, is very much in the torture chamber of it all, because it all plays out in this house that Lola's dad owns. And on the other hand is a very Australian horror movie. If you have watched Wolf Creek, you know. I do like Australian horror movies, just to also put that out there. I have watched Talk to Me at least 5 times. I love it. And I would love to watch it. I will watch it again. Maybe at some point I will also make a list of my top 5, because we also have Cargo and some other movies which have taken my heart. This one has less taken my heart and more just taken my guts and ripped them out and been like, there, wasn't that fun? And I just thought, I mean, fun? Yeah, sure. And there is this nice balance between this dark humor of the prom going on in the background and you seeing his friend going through the typical prom experience, I'm guessing. And him getting turned. I'm laughing because it is a very insane juxtaposition, right? Between the prom date that is beautiful and him getting tortured in the most glittery, as you will see later, pink way possible. So, by Lola injecting Brent with bleach in his vocal cords, he is not able to scream anymore. And that is something that will keep coming up, because every time he gets hurt in the movie, again, I'm laughing because it's uncomfortable. Every time he gets hurt in the movie, he tries to scream, and Daddy and Princess are saying, I can't hear you. Also, the injecting of the bleach was also inspired by a real-life serial killer, Robert Berdella, who would do the same thing to a number of victims. So the next thing we see is this whole torture corn part of the movie where she tries to feed first her lobotomized mom some chicken by just shoving it in her face. And then she shoves it in Brent's face. And she says this sentence that haunts me still to this day.
Isn't it finger licking good?
And he tries to close his mouth to not get it. And she just keeps shoving it. And as soon as he doesn't, she says, Daddy. And Daddy has a hammer on his side. And Brent then kind of has to open his mouth because, you know. I'm just imagining like being 17, 18, wanting to just go to the dance, being haunted by your dad's accident. And as if that wasn't enough, you had to go through torture corn with Daddy and Princess. And then she turns to her dad and says, I'm ready to paint now. As you will notice, in the next scene, she's holding a bloody fork in her hand, and Brent's chest is carved with a heart and her initials on it. I think her name is Lola Stone, and it's just LS. So you can imagine what happened. Then they proceed to throw salt on his wounds, and she actually isn't satisfied with just having sprinkled some salt on it while he screams in bleach, because that means he's like, It's terrible. So she opens the entire thing and just swooshes the entire salt container onto his body, making him convulse. You always have these interjections of Brent's friend, who now is, for example, getting his high on with his goth date in the car. And then we swoosh back to him, and Lola sits on his lap and shows him her scrapbook, where she has pictures of herself as she was young and she was a bit older, and she's like, look, I look so cute, isn't it? And then he sees also pictures of other boys who have also been tortured. And he realizes he's not the first one. So she and her dad are serial torturers. Indeed they are. I will not yet say serial killers, because as you will notice later, these boys are still alive. In a makeshift kind of basement, below the room they're in, which is the dining room, there is these two massive, I guess, steel contraption doors with a hole in the middle. And judging by the matted hair that some of them have been there for years. Yeah. The whole fun part of this prom party is that Lola or her dad, I think it's her dad who did it previously, because judging by how Lola was handling it this time, she was new at it. So I am guessing usually the dad would drill a hole in the frontal and then would pour hot boiling water into that hole to further mush it and make them docile, as they say.
But why?
It's just a horrific scene because you have a lot of close-ups, you have a lot of trembling. It's just so well made because she starts, let me demonstrate. Ignore my socks if you can see them. So she starts here, holding the drill. And Brent is sitting where you're sitting. And then she just, while the drill is on, approaches in the most nonchalant way. She doesn't sit down like I do, but I am because I want to. And then she but she misses. And then the dad is like, you have to push harder. In the meantime, Brent, remember that necklace he had? Yeah, so he is, his hands are tied back here and he's, words are failing me today. He is, he is, the ties and the razor blade, and then he is cutting away at those ties on the behind while all of this is happening. And let's not forget that scene where she fed him chicken, he headbutts her, and then the dad proceeds to take a hammer and knives and hammer those into his feet to the floor. So you have this massive puddle of blood just, forming below. And after that chicken scene, he has to get up and she dances with him while her dad is just throwing glitter around, making this entire movie even more just, what? It's so weird. And he's covered in glitter and blood, and his feet are covered in glitter and blood. And then she's dancing with him. And that is just, that happened. I think you're slowly getting why I like this movie.
No! No!
Because, again, it has these two very it has these two very opposing sides. You have the blood and the torture, and you have the glitter and the prom. And that is just mashed together into one movie, which makes the torture even more insane and the glitter even more just unbelievable. Because who would do that except for psychopaths? So it ups the ante for me. Back to the drilling. So Lola, the character, is partially based on Jeffrey Dahmer, who he also lobotomized some of his victims by drilling a hole in their head, but he wouldn't pour hot water into it. That was just an added bonus that the director gave us. Opposite to Lola, nobody survived Jeffrey Dahmer's lobotomies. So take that with what you will. Gathering my thoughts.
A few moments later.
Back to the whole cutting of the ties. In the meantime, while she approaches him with a hot kettle of water. Hot. It's hot, okay? And she kind of drips it on her dad, and her dad gets not angry because she's his princess, but he has to shove his hand away, and Brent gets like this moment of being able to do something about the whole situation, and he breaks free from his ties, grabs the knives from his feet, and starts slashing away at Dad's neck like it was nobody's business. Yeah. And then he shoves the dad into that hole. And we see that the boys who are in that hole start eating away at him because they are so hungry and lobotomized that they don't care what comes down there. They are just going to eat it. The good thing is that after Lola shoves Brent into that hole, they are so satiated that they're more aggressive towards him. But it doesn't seem as fervent because they already ate parts of Lola's dad. And he is able to sadly off them. I mean, he has to. They're trying to eat him. So add that to the whole movie's list of things that are weird. lobotomized cannibals. Yay! I never thought I would say these two words in the same breath, but lobotomized cannibals is now a thing since 2008. Thank you, Mr. Byrne.
Stop it.
Back to Brent. So Lola tells him from above of the hole, okay, let's keep it that way, from above of the hole. It sounds very dramatic, that she is going to off Holly and she is going to off his mom by stabbing her in the neck like he did to her dad. Which makes him, inspired to survive and get out of there and do something about it. I guess that's why also the movie is called The Loved Ones.
What? Oh.
Because it is about the loved ones. Maybe it's also about the daddy princess thing of it all, which is just so weird. If you watch the movie, you're gonna notice just the weirdness of this relationship. It's so atrocious in my eyes. Back to Brent. So he notices that there is a lot of bones lying around in this hole, and he props the bones up and the bodies of the victims, and he is able to climb out of that hole. Meantime, it's daylight. So Lola is bloody, barefoot, with a massive kitchen knife, walking along the road singing,
Am I pretty enough? Is my heart not broken?
which is a song that already plays in the beginning when Brent, I think, wakes up or something. The song already plays before. It seems to be her favorite song somehow because it keeps playing and it's very weird and it fits the entire mood of the movie. And in the meantime, you see Holly driving down the road because she kind of figured it out. She was lying in Brent's bed because she was consoling Brent's mom and figures out that Lola must have something to do with it because that's the only pointer that she got. And you just have this Lola scrapbook just thudding against her front, the front glass thingy from the car. Oh gosh. Okay, you have the scrapbook thudding against the front of the car. Papers are flying. Holly is looking at the flying papers like, what the hell? And then you have the next second just Lola appearing at the side of the car, looking at her with the butcher knife. And just there we get this inside car attack moment that is so well filmed because it's filmed from outside and you just see this knife and Holly and Lola, and Holly kind of manages to escape and runs away while Lola runs behind her with the knife. And then you hear a car revving in the background, and it's Brent, who is speeding down the road with intention. He obviously sees Lola because she's wearing the brightest pink dress you've ever seen and speeds towards her with such power and hits her and screeches to a halt. Holly manages to enter the car and she sees Brent, and I find this moment very sweet because she looks at him and it's like, and she sees that he has been through the ringer and she feels bad and she's crying and it's very sweet and they hug. And then you see Lola. I love that moment so much because you see it from afar. You just see Lola dragging herself across the concrete. The car is on this side. Okay, you have a full view of the scene. The camera is kind enough to be really zoomed out. You have the car on this side. You have this much road, and you have Lola on the other side on the ground, stemming herself with the knife on the road because her other wrist is broken and her bones are protruding from it. It's such a good scene. And she just drags herself with the knife across the concrete, just willing herself to go towards her target, right? And Brent obviously does a thing that we all would do, hits reverse and smack dabs her into her face. And you hear the neck. It was just so great. It was so great. Also, by the way, Brent driving is him getting over his trauma from his dad, because in the beginning you see that he's being driven by Holly, who gets her car license, and she's like, hey, I'm gonna drive you and I will pick you up from the dance. And it seems like from what his mother had said, he also needs to take the taxi to the dance. So he hasn't been driving. And I like the way that the director shows us that, because it's not blatantly in your face the way that Hollywood sometimes seems to over-explain everything. Back to it. So, splat in the face, Brent returns to his mom, she hugs him, and we get this beautiful, glittery outro. And that's it. That's the movie. That's absolutely the end of this candy-colored nightmare called The Loved Ones. And I like the movie a lot.
You don't say.
Because it has these opposing sides. And I also like the movie because it carries a lot of emotional weight. And I find that the director has developed every character so that every character has a purpose. Every single one of them has a certain background. You get to know their backstory. You get to know what's happening. They all have depth. So I like that a lot. And it all ties back to actually, in hindsight, a shared grief. Because the person you saw in the beginning who caused Brent to swerve and crash into a tree was one of Lola's victims. And had Lola not had this victim, who then was able to thankfully escape, but then unthankfully get back into capture, there wouldn't have been the crash and Brent's dad wouldn't have died. That same victim is Mia's brother, who is also sad, and you will see throughout the movie tries to drown her sorrows with all sorts of behaviors and coping mechanisms which are unhealthy. Lola and her dad basically affected an entire community by their absolutely horrific shenanigans. And originally, this movie was concepted to be a low-budget movie. However, I think he found somebody who found the concept so interesting that he said, hey, I'm going to give you 4 million, 3 to 4 million. I'm not sure how much. It seems to be a bit vague, but that doesn't matter. Make it into a higher budget. So Byron, the director, sat at the script again and made it in such a way that he was able to use the money in the best way possible. What I also liked was the director had a mantra, and the mantra was like, if you don't care, you don't scare. And I feel like that's something that more horror movies that I have seen lately should also embrace, especially Blumhouse, Imaginary. Just care more, then you will scare more, okay? Care about the scripts that you're seeing. Please. Please. I cannot watch any more high gloss horror movies that have a terrible plotline or are copied, insanely copied. Speak No Evil. What the hell? What the hell was that? That was a terrible thing to do, Blumhouse. And the ending was maddening. If you know the ending from Speak No Evil, the original, you will be as mad as I was when I watched the movie. This was me watching the movie the whole time. What? Why? No, don't do that. Why are you doing that? Why is this? Why is everything? And McAvoy couldn't save this movie for me personally. I know there's some people who liked it, but I'm going off on a tangent. Also, other fun fact before I finish off. This movie was filmed in 4 weeks. And if you have seen my Tusker review, again, 4 weeks, insane. But great. Highly appreciated the efforts that were put in by everyone, including the cast and the crew. Thank you so much for this little gem. I can't wait for your newest movie to come out, Dangerous Animals, hopefully soon. And this was me screaming into the void, signing off. I hope you had fun. If you did, subscribe, please. If you didn't like it, don't subscribe. And I will see you in the next one. Bye.